Chapter 1276, Wandering Magician. Upon seeing this scene, Katerina's body took a step back uncontrollably as her mind fell silent. 2 seconds later, she opened her mouth and let out a male voice. "Hey, little raven." Without waiting for the young man to respond, Katerina smiled and said, "Aren't you looking down on me by bringing just a few avatars? Could it be that you're a mailman, specifically here to deliver me beyonder ingredients? Tell me, what kind of cooperation do you want? I don't hate you too much. After all, what happened back then was planned by that zealot. The mastermind was Alistair Tudor, and you can only be considered an accomplice." The man opposite him caught the crown that was covered in rust and blood. He straightened up and shook his head with a smile. "I have my reservations in cooperating with you after hearing your voice. Why don't you get Sauron and Einhorn to talk to me?" Tusk, it's been so many years, yet you're still as willful as a child. Do you still remember who was responsible for carrying you when you were still a baby? Who was the one who burned away your hair? The Red Angel evil spirit mocked without any compromises. The young man opposite him used his empty hand to straighten his monocle and calmly turned around before walking out the door without any hesitation. During this process, he sighed softly. "Childish." Seeing that Ammon had no intention of stopping, the Red Angel fell silent for a few seconds. Before the other party walked out of the room, it controlled Katerina's body and chuckled. "Don't think that I don't know what you want to do, but it doesn't matter. Since you don't have the same thoughts as that zealot, then there's room for cooperation." Ammon stopped and turned halfway to look at Demoness of White Katerina, who was possessed by the Red Angel evil spirit. The monocle on his right eye seemed to glimmer slightly. Awa County, in a city that was being rebuilt after war, inside a bar which had burn marks. "Toby, did you add too much damned water to your beer?" A man wearing an old cap took the cup and took a sip. He couldn't help but complain. The boss, who doubled up as bartender, wiped his cup and snorted. "Do you still remember the alcohol ban from before? Alec, you should be thankful that you even have alcohol to drink." The burly man, who was named Alec, murmured a few words before he focused on drinking his beer. Beside him was a bronze-skinned man with rolled-up sleeves. He looked up and surveyed the area. "I heard that the alcohol ban will soon be lifted because Fainapotter's food will soon be sent over. Also, Faceac and Intis will pay reparations with plenty of food. I can only say that I hope so. May the Lord watch over us." The bar owner, Toby, had just responded when he heard the door open. He looked up and saw a young man, who seemed to be a wandering magician, walk in. This man was wearing a long black robe and a classic top hat. He walked to the bar counter and sat on a high stool. A cup of Southville beer. The man placed several copper pence on the counter. The burly man named Alec turned his head to look at the stranger and asked curiously, "Not from around here. A magician?" The young man, who didn't have any outstanding features, laughed and said, "Yes, the magic that I'm best at is to satisfy the wishes of people." Alec immediately whistled. "What did I hear? To satisfy the wishes of people. Lord, there's a fellow pretending to be a deity here." This teasing caused everyone to burst into laughter. The young man who claimed to be a magician wasn't angry. He smiled and said, "That's just a special magic trick." Alec gulped down a mouthful of bland beer and laughed. "Then fulfill my wish and let this stingy boss treat me to a glass of beer." "All right." The young man in a black robe raised his right hand and tapped lightly on the table. With the glass slamming onto the counter loudly, the bar owner poured a glass of beer and pushed it in front of Alec. Then, he retracted his hand and repeated his glass wiping. This scene that seemed familiar to him stunned Alec. He shouted blankly, "Toby, you know him?" "No." The boss, Toby, glanced at Alec like he was a fool. Alec raised the glass of beer with uncertainty and took a careful sip to see if Toby would make him pay for it. Seeing that the bar owner no longer bothered with him, the burly man turned his head in surprise and looked at the young man in a black robe and a tall hat. "How did you do it?" "I told you that it's a special magic trick." The young man leisurely drank a mouthful of Southville beer. While Alec remained in shock, the man beside him with rolled-up sleeves sneered. I dare bet that you and Toby must have colluded beforehand. Your knocking on the table is to say that you'll pay for the beer. You can make another wish, the wandering magician replied nonchalantly. My brother and I have a house that collapsed during one of the bombings and is being rebuilt. My wish is that it will return to its original state before I return. The man with his sleeves rolled up said smugly. This wasn't an easy task. The wandering magician raised his right hand and snapped his fingers before smiling. All right, your wish has been granted. The people who were paying attention to this broke out into laughter. They no longer paid attention to the foreigner and his clumsy magic show. After drinking, the man with his sleeves rolled up left the bar in a drunken stupor with Alec and staggered down the street towards the suburbs. 15 minutes later, they returned to the area where they were rebuilding their home. They were about to enter the tent that was issued by the government. At this moment, a gust of cold wind blew and made them shudder at the same time. Soon after, a 2-story building appeared before their eyes. It was a house that they were very familiar with and had spent years building. Alec and his brother subconsciously turned their heads and saw the same confusion in each other's eyes. I didn't drink that much. That damn Toby mixed so much water into the beer, Alec murmured, as if he was seeing things thanks to his intoxication. His brother didn't respond. After being stunned for a few seconds, he suddenly widened his stride and rushed to the house, touching the wall and the door. It's real, he kept muttering to himself as if he had gone crazy. Alec did the same thing. Finally, he confirmed that their house had been restored to its original state. This made him both surprised and scared. At this moment, his brother suddenly said, "My wish was granted. That magician. Before he finished his sentence, he turned around and ran towards the bar. Alec came to his senses and followed closely behind. Bang! They pushed open the bar's door and rushed in, casting their gaze at the bar counter. However, the black-robed and tall hat-wearing wandering magician had already left. Alec and his brother looked around. They appeared relieved, but they also felt like they had lost something. In the square of the city, the young wandering magician was squatting in front of a 10-year-old girl. My magic is to fulfill your wish. He turned his head and glanced at the nearby Evernight Cathedral. The little girl had run out from the Evernight Mass, seemingly preferring the empty square. After some thought, she looked at the gentle Mr. Magician and said, "My wish is for my father, uncle, and brother to come back to life. I don't want their bereavement money." The wandering magician didn't respond, as he gazed deeply at the little girl in front of him. The girl pursed her lips and forced a smile. "I was just joking. Mommy said that such a wish is not something even the deities can grant." As she spoke, she lowered her head and looked at her toes. "I just want Daddy to hug me again." Before she could finish speaking, she suddenly realized that there was a shadow in front of her. She quickly raised her head and looked to the side. Standing there was a lone soldier dressed in a red shirt and white pants. He didn't hold a rifle and was wearing a hearty smile on his face. He crouched down and spread open his arms like always. "Daddy," the little girl pounced forward and threw herself into the warm embrace. "I miss you so much." At that moment, the young magician pressed down his hat, straightened himself, and walked towards the entrance of the square. Amidst the night breeze, his long black robe swayed gently in the vast plaza. In a blink of an eye, it was Monday. In the ancient palace above the gray fog, the members of the Tarot Club appeared simultaneously and greeted Mr. Fool in unison. Klein looked around and suddenly felt emotional. The Hanged Man is currently a cardinal of the Church of Storms, and he's in charge of the Rorstad Archipelago Diocese. Although Justice has temporarily lost contact with the psychology alchemists, she has the right to become one of their counselors. The sun is an elder of the 6-member council in the City of Silver, and the moon is a sanguine earl. The star is a high-ranking deacon of the Church of Evernights Nighthawks. The hermit is a hidden queen at sea, one of the 10 pillars of the Moses ascetic order. Apart from the magician and judgment, the other members of the Tarot Club are all demigods. They are the upper echelons of different factions in the mysterious world. And with the support of the Abraham family, the magician has a high chance of advancing to sequence 4 secret sorcerer within the year. In other words, Judgment is the one who has the hardest time improving her strength. She is only one of the mid to upper echelons in MI9, so it's extremely difficult for her to become a demigod. Klein, who was shrouded in grayish-white fog, quickly retracted his gaze and laughed self-deprecatingly in his heart. It's finally like a high-end secret organization. However, it always gave me the feeling that this is some conference between the various factions. He then nodded at the Tarot Club members and said, "Let's begin."